welcome to Deep Dives with Dogs. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about the First Battle of Bull Run, also known as the First Manassas, by the Confederates. If you ever wonder why those names are like that, typically the Union would name after a body of water, and the Confederacy would name after a nearby town. Now, it isn't always true. There were times when they didn't do that. It was maybe something else that they did, but that is typically how it went. But anyway, the First Battle of Bull Run is a very famous battle. It will have the Union lose, I'm sure as you can imagine, but especially in the East, they lost quite often. But it'll have a very famous Confederate get his nickname. The battle is on the Union side, led by Irwin McDowell, I believe, General Irwin McDowell. Not necessarily the best. Kind of one of those that's kind of forgotten about in terms of Union commanders. For the Confederates, it'll be led by P.G.T. Beauregard. General P.G.T. Beauregard. Beauregard, not necessarily the best either, but there is more at work here as to why the Confederates are victorious than just Beauregard. But, I mean, he's decent enough, but he's not necessarily the best. Not necessarily the worst, but not necessarily the best. The battle numbers will be about 35,000 Union troops to about 20,000 or so Confederates. Casualty numbers on both sides. The Union will have about 3,000 casualties from this battle. The Confederates about 2,000. Which, I mean, if you're just going off percentages, technically the Union got a small victory in that percentage-wise, they technically had less casualties. You know, yeah, I mean, if you're looking for anything to say positively, kind of, but even then, it's still like, well, the raw numbers show they still lost more, so, you know, still not great. Still not great. Definitely not great, actually. But this will have quite the ramification. These Union troops were being led down to take Richmond, Virginia. The Union, that was their ultimate goal, pretty much the entire time in the East, was to take Richmond, take Richmond, take Richmond. The Confederates, their ultimate goal was kind of just to survive. There were attempts to go north, sometimes even after these battles like Bull Run. They thought about, what if we counterattack north? Sometimes they would with smaller attacks, but nothing with actually any teeth behind it. Mostly because the Union still had a large army guarding Washington. Washington was probably at this time the most well-defended city on Earth. It's debatable, obviously. You know, maybe someone else, maybe it's, but Washington is very heavily defended, so it is very unlikely the Confederates ever take it. So that's why a lot of these attacks north really don't have any teeth. There's nothing to attack. I'm sure Lee wouldn't like either them blowing up part of his land, you know, because, yeah. But anyway, there will be, like I said, a famous Confederate that gets his name here, and that would be Stonewall Jackson. Jackson is fighting on, I believe it was Hunter's Hill or something along that line. It had an H. It's escaping me now, of course, but he's sitting up on this hill. Another commander points and says, "Look, there's Jackson standing like a stone wall." Some believe it was an insult to Jackson. Not unlikely. That is a possibility. Just because most of the Confederate generals and other commanders did not like Stonewall Jackson. Very religious man. Very no BS kind of guy. A lot of commanders just didn't like him. Lee really is kind of the exception. And while it is possible that it was an insult, it's also possible it was a phrase of endearment, or they were happy to be like, "Hey, look at that, Jackson, you got this," So who knows for sure. If we're just going to be honest, it's very unknown, you could say, what his intentions really truly were. But Stonewall Jackson obviously will go on to do quite many other things, and be quite the prominent Confederate general. Even though, and this guy gotta be talked about, Jackson is brought up as one of the better ones, but he has a lot of failures, and a lot of times those gonna get forgotten about. But when he shined bright. But when he was doing bad, man, people forgot. People forgot because it was that bad. Gonna be honest. But yeah, this battle, obviously, like I said, Confederate victory, and we'll have the Union push back. McDowell will kind of be removed. A lot of these generals, they get removed pretty often. He will as well be removed. And they'll try again next time, right? That's kind of the Union's whole motto this whole war. We'll try again next time, at least in the East. And out West, the Union was doing a little bit better. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys like the video, leave a like. If you have any ways I can improve these videos, leave a comment down below. I appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.